Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Rooted and Rising. I'm so grateful to have you here and so excited to talk about this specific topic. And the first thing I want to say is, as you hear me talk about this and as you hear me go through some of the examples, it is very natural that you might get a little contracty. There might be some feels. And I just want to remind you for right here, right now, and for every moment in life, when we get a little triggered or when we get a little bit of a contraction or some discomfort, we tend to automatically make it mean something, or we get frustrated with it, or we make it mean something about ourselves or about the situation. And what I want to remind you is that when that happens, we're really just being shown where there's new opportunity for us to get curious. And as one of my teachers always says, there is birth, there is death, and everything in between is just practice. And so we get to be really compassionate with ourselves when we're triggered or uncomfortable or contracting or confused, and come back to it's just a practice. Thank you for the information, body. This trigger, this contraction, this experience, this discomfort is information. Thank you. That's as much as it has to mean, right? With that, I only preface it with that because I had a hard time with this and was very confused and very feeling like if I didn't effort enough, I wasn't putting in my work, I wasn't doing my part, I wasn't showing up, and ultimately I'd be left alone, lonely, broke, etc., right? And what I'm talking about is living life and treating the things in your life with a very long leash. Okay. And there's so many layers to this, and I'm just going to speak on one or two today because we could go into this for hours and hours and hours. But what does it mean to live your life and treat the things in your life with a very long leash? Now, what I'll say this does not mean that we don't care or that we are an inactive participant or that we're throwing in the towel or anything like that. It simply is having a long leash. And, when I was younger, for many years, I studied natural horsemanship. I worked with horses. I was giving adults horseback riding lessons when I was 13. And I was tiny. I still am. I'm a small human being who chose to work with massive animals. And I had to learn how to maintain safety and boundaries and connection and respect without force, because force was not a tactic that was going to work for me, right? Battling 1,000-pound animals, force was not going to work. So I had to learn a different way. And that really ties into this living with a long leash, right? And so again, it's not giving up, it's not being flippant, it's not caring, but it's living in such a way where we're creating enough spaciousness that what is true can actually show itself. Write that down and circle that if that's all you take away from this. When we live life with a long leash, we are making enough space for what is true to actually show itself, to actually be present. Here's an example, and I think one of the most common places we can talk about this with is relationships, intimate relationship. Well, all relationships, really. You're in a partnership, and it is love and passion and amazing, and you want more of that person. So you start pulling a little bit. You start putting a little more pressure on or wanting more. And we'll talk about this. This is not to say that the desiring and the longing is wrong. We can desire and long with a long leash. But what tends to happen for many of us is we feel that longing or we feel that want for something. And then we subconsciously, without even knowing, we start tightening up the leash. We start kind of demanding more or showing up in ways to try to get a need met, or we start questioning our partner or why, whatever we're feeling, why aren't we being prioritized or chosen, or whatever it may be for you when you're in that state of wanting more from them, right? When we want more, the probably natural response is to start pulling for more. What that does, though, when we're in that pulling state, is it puts you in a state that's not fully true, right? When we want things and we feel like we don't have them, and then we're in relational dynamics or power dynamics, we start acting in ways that really aren't us. And just natural cause and effect, when you start doing that to somebody, they will go the other way. Or they'll come into your pull, and then there's going to be some murky energy, some resentment, some exhaustion, right? So how do we have this big longing, this big desire, and how do we not pull? And this is where, and we teach, this is, one of the bases of Selm, is we teach what it means to really be able to hold yourself, not in a hyper independent way, but what it means to hold yourself so profoundly and so deeply and so securely that now you can observe and witness what's happening and still stay in your center. So this looks like feeling that longing and that desire and that craving and that wanting, but not being pulled out by the rip current of it. So you get to be in that from a very grounded place. And now when you're in that state, even the way you communicate to your partner about this desire will feel so different, right? When you're in a place of deeply having yourself, knowing yourself, allowing yourself to be the witness of your experience instead of being in the wave, the washing machine cycle of it, you are going to energetically and physically respond, react, speak, hold yourself so differently. If you're in a state where you don't quite have yourself and you're feeling this longing, you very well may go into, and we all have our loops and our patterns, so I can't say what yours are, but you may go into blame. Well, you're not choosing me. You're making XYZ more important. Or if you're a little bit avoidant like me, you may go into, well, I'm all of a sudden busy now, right? You want the thing you want, but now you're closing off to it because we're in that tight leash energy. Versus if we can really have ourselves and really be like, oh, okay, where in my body am I feeling this longing? First, always, how can I give a little bit of that to myself? Not because I can't expect it from my partner, but first it has to come from me. So how can I fill me up a little bit first? And now how can I also just watch the movie scene, right? Of my life right now and of what's happening and just watch it instead of be so swept up in it. Then what you might do is have a really grounded conversation with your partner. Or you might, and Erin and I do this with each other often, I might say, I'm having a sensation, I'm having a moment. I got myself, but I also need you to just witness me for a moment. And having the awareness and having myself enough to even name that then allows me to go into some of my feminine waves and some of my emotion and some of my maybe not super having myself with her, right? And so this idea of holding ourselves, having ourselves, resourcing ourselves is not about not needing our partner, but it's about just having us a little bit, having a little steadiness within us first, so that you can come to your partner in the truth of your experience, in your rawness, in your depth, in your ache, in your craving, in your whatever. But you're coming with a texture of A, consciousness, and B, security. Very different than all of a sudden starting to pick fights to get attention or pick fights because you don't want to feel that longing anymore, so it's easier to push them away, or any of the ways that we as humans do these things, right? So when you have yourself and when you've got that center and when you can watch things instead of being in the rip current of them, you're gonna feel safer giving the things in your life a longer leash. Because if you start to get that, ooh, I need, again, you're going to start acting in ways that aren't really you, which is going to bring out ways of your partner's being that aren't really true to them. versus even for the first just few moments, can we give it a little bit of a longer leash? Can we give someone the benefit of the doubt and assume that we can't assume, right? Know that there is so much more going on in every moment than what we can cognitively really see and process and understand. And, hear me when I say, I'm not saying ignore your desires. I'm not saying bypass your intuition. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying create some slack, create a longer leash, and then you're going to very quickly start to let whatever is be known, right? If you just give someone a longer leash, they're going to, put yourself in that position. You're going to feel the freedom to flow and to be you, and you're going to gravitate towards that person. If someone's pulling and pulling and pulling, you're going to push. Or if it's not an aligned relationship, if that leash gets longer and longer and they get further and further away, that is the natural flow of what is true. And that is information that you're going to want. You're going to want to know if when you give someone a longer leash, they get further and further and further and further away, you're going to want to know that. That might not be the relationship you want at this point. And this isn't about giving someone all this space to test them. It's truly just about when you give someone space and when you're in a state of groundedness, only the truth can exist. Only the truth can make itself known to you. And you don't have to overexert all of this effort and energy trying to force anything. And we could talk about this in relationship to work and money and business and clients as well. When we are starting to tighten up the leash a little bit and we're forcing and we're really, and again, there's a difference between drive and ambition and a healthy amount of effort, of course, and then tightening up that leash so much to where we're creating this mass amount of pressure around our business, around our clients, around, needing something else for us to be okay, versus giving it a longer leash, putting in the effort, doing the things that you're going to be proud of yourself for, being really a strong stand for your work, your integrity, what you do, how you do it, consistency, right? Doing the things, but then creating a longer leash for what is true to exist, right? Because the clients that need you to remind them that you're there all the time, that probably isn't sustainable for you over time. Right? Those aren't the clients that we need. And they probably aren't the clients that are going to benefit the most from your work. Whatever your work is, whatever field you're in. But when we do all the things, when we show up in a way that we can get behind, when we know that we've done our part, and then we let the leash be nice and long, the people that come into our field to work with us are going to feel so much better. It's going to feel better for everybody involved. And again, notice the differences I'm making here. I'm not saying just feminine, sit back, receive, it'll all come to you with no effort. No, I tried that. And it doesn't work that way. There is a level of effort and intention and co-creation that's required of us. And then the big test is, can you lengthen the leash? Right? I like to say when we're fully embodied and fully secure in ourselves, we can give people and things such a long leash we can't see it. We don't need to see it. When we're a stand for ourselves, when we're fully behind ourselves, when we're learning and practicing, regulating ourselves, then we can have such a long leash that we allow the other person, we allow the things, the business, the clients, the opportunities, what have you, to be as they are in relationship to us. And now if you're anything like I was a few years ago and this is triggering you, or you're having this sensation of but what do you mean I can just wait and see, or not effort, or I need to be more involved, or whatever it is, there might be some deep fear of rejection there, right? If I don't, well, it's like rejection and safety, which they go hand in hand. But it's like, if I don't pull this person in, and if I don't effort, and if I don't lead the way and hold our relationship, then am I going to be alone, right? That fear of rejection. If I don't hustle all day and cold call and get in everyone's face, I won't have money. I won't be able to pay my bills. I won't eat. I'll be, I'll die. Right? It's kind of how our animal brain works. But when we can, again, resource ourselves enough, self-regulate enough, and hold ourselves, we can loosen the leash and we can let whatever's meant to be. Because I forget who originally said this, but we've all heard rejection is protection. So if in giving something or someone a long leash leads to it not being for us, can you get to a place in yourself where you can trust that that is protection? Because have you yet to have a moment in your life where something didn't work out the way you thought it would, and then you were doomed? Nothing came after that? I doubt it. I, for myself, have been in moments where I was like, what the absolute fuck? Everything is collapsing and all at once? Like, really, universe? Really? And then it all became clear, or something better, or something more aligned for the moment, or something I was more prepared for came my way. So remember that rejection is protection, and we don't have to try so hard to make everything work the way we think that it should. Right? And like I said, we could talk about this with so many topics and in so many ways. I think of this with parenting. I have a lot of women clients that are mothers, and I had a very interesting relationship with my mother growing up, and it's the same is true there. When, as a parent, when there's this over tightening of the leash because we want our kids to be safe, we want them to have XYZ, we want this specific relationship with them, probably the one we didn't get from our mom, right? We tighten the leash, the opposite starts to happen, and now both people are not acting in truth, are not responding in truth. Versus, and I know this is so hard, I also know I'm not a mother, I understand all of that. Versus, however, when we know that we are doing the best we can, teaching our children with the most truth that we can, setting them up to be the most prepared for this world that we can, and then we loosen the leash and we trust that A, our relationship will evolve the way it's supposed to. B, they're going to be in the situations they need to be in for their soul's growth and evolution, and we can't get in the way of that. And trust that by giving enough space and enough breathing room, that's going to make them feel even safer to then come to you, come to us when they need to. Right? Again, I know I'm not a mother. I am a future stepmom, and I did have a very interesting dynamic with my mother growing up. So I'm speaking from, of course, my lens, and it does give us something to think about, right? All of our relationships, our children, our partners, our friends. It's like, where is there a lack of self-trust or self-holding that makes that long leash feel really scary? And can we get behind ourselves, and can we trust the flow of life enough to believe even 5% more that when we get behind ourselves and we know that we've done what we can without over-efforting and over-contriving and all of that, that whatever happens in the spaciousness of that long leash is for everyone's highest. It's the growth we're all supposed to be on. It's the truth of whatever is. We don't need to muddy up the water. We don't need to try to paint the picture and make it happen the way we think it should. It's a lot of wasted energy, and it's perpetuating untruths. It's perpetuating force. It's perpetuating exhaustion, right? So who do you need to be? How do you need to get behind yourself? And this takes work, loves. This takes work. It's not going to happen overnight, most likely. But who do you need to be? How do you need to get behind yourself? How do you need to hold yourself differently, more deeply, more truly, to be able to give the things and the people in your life a longer leash, and to be able to trust the openness and the spaciousness of that longer leash. And please hear me, I want to be clear here. The longer leash doesn't mean you not speaking your truth, not asking for what you desire, not taking the steps you want to take. It just means you're not crossing that line into control and force and trying to get what you think you want or what you want at the expense of what is true and what is natural in any given moment. That's the difference. You for sure still speak your truth, right? Like I said with my partner and I have myself first. I fully resource myself first to the best of my ability. Of course, I'm human. And then with that long leash and with as little expectation as possible, because I trust the spaciousness. I trust that if she can't have me in that moment, then she needs to go be a resource for herself. There's something else that I'm not seeing or not aware of, and it doesn't mean she doesn't love me or prioritize me. Right? And if I was in a different relationship and I did give that long leash and that person just continuously couldn't show up for me and I had to tighten the leash to get anything, I would see the truth that that relationship was not in my highest. Right? So it's the flow of life, the flow of energy. We don't have to contrive an effort as much as we've been conditioned to think we do. So, to kind of sum it all up, how can we get behind ourselves and really become that observer, the witness, the regulated, calm version of ourselves that can look at what's happening instead of just be swept up in it, and then loosen the leash a little bit to make room for what's true, right? Step one. And then how do we be the person that can trust whatever happens in that spaciousness? How can we trust that any rejection in a moment is protection? It might be a rejection for a moment, or it might be a rejection of a relationship or an opportunity or what have you. But how can we trust that that rejection, that no, that not yet, that not right now is protection? It's for you. And how can we walk that line and be in that dance of a long leash and your truth? Here's my truth. Here's who I am. Here's what I desire. Here's where I'm at. Here's how I want you to feel me. And I'm throwing out, the leash is so long, I'm throwing it out. I don't want to control the situation because I want to know what's true. I want to know what's true, not what I can do. Right? When we start to get in that dance of life, everything changes. I want to know what is true, not what I can do. Because we could build a whole, we're strong as fuck, we are creative as fuck, powerful as fuck. We could create and build this whole life around us, and then 20 years later realize none of it was true. So how do we get behind ourselves enough to trust that that long leash is showing us not what we're able to do, but it's showing us what is really true? And how do we be the version of ourselves that can honor that and trust that and be grateful for that? Right? And this takes work. Like I said, this is not easy. This is not, to be honest, not a skill that we're taught. We're taught to over effort. We're taught to put in the work and hustle and just force a lot in our life. And so this doesn't come easy at first. It's nervous system regulation. It's understanding some of our entanglements. Why do I feel this way when someone starts to distance themselves? Why do I feel this way about XYZ money situation? What stories were going on in my childhood around sexuality that now I'm feeling this during sex, right? Be gentle with yourself. No, this doesn't happen over time or right away. It happens over time. And when you find yourself slipping into that tight leash, don't beat yourself up. Just go, oh, there it is. It's so understandable that I have this reaction because XYZ. So know that this takes time. Know that it's a practice. Remember, there's birth, there's death, everything in between is a practice. And when you find yourself tightening the leash, even if you can just pause and catch yourself, you're ahead of most. If you can pause and just say, ooh, there it is, I'm tightening. What might happen if I loosen the leash just a little bit? And can I trust that spaciousness? Can I trust that spaciousness? So much of sensually embodied living is this nuanced dance, this co-creation, this more easeful and pleasurable way of living. Because a more easeful and pleasurable way of living is more sustainable. It is how we make sure that we don't get 10, 20, 30 years into a job, a relationship, a city, a lifestyle, an identity, and then realize it was all fake. Sensually embodied living, essentially embodied life, is all parts of us on board, in the present moment, online, awake, and here, ready for the game. Right? That's embodiment. All of us here, all parts of ourself, of our story, of our truth, of our rawness, here online in a real, true, grounded way. If you're interested in diving into any of this more deeply, go ahead and find me on Instagram. I'll leave it in the show notes, but it's at Ray Taff. And there's an application in my Instagram bio for Selm. And I always suggest women that that is where you start. It's a less than 7-minute maybe application. And just going through the questions really helps you feel out. Oh, where am I really? What is going on? What do I want more of, less of? And then, of course, it helps me feel you and know where you're at and know if Selm will be a fit for you. So again, if you're desiring to dive into this, I would love to talk to you. Head on over to my Instagram at Ray Taff. You can always email me, ray@raytaff.com, and we can discuss further. I hope this was helpful. If it was, share it with a friend. Give us a review. Let me know what's helping you, what is really sticking, what's landing, what you want more of. I love to hear from you, and I will see you real soon.